Hi Quilty friends, welcome back. We're doing we're getting down to the final months of Zephyr. It's getting really exciting. I believe this is the last month we do traditional squares. Next month you will do some piecing, but it's borders. And then the final month is sewing it all together. Okay, so we've got one little thing that's slightly different, although I don't think many of you will think this is any kind of big surprise. So in step 3, we're gonna cut these squares. These are D, this kind of gray fabric. I had you cut them just a little bit bigger. The pattern said 3 7/8, and I had you cut them 4 inches. So we're month 8, step 3, and these pieces are just slightly bigger. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut both of these squares on the diagonal. Okay. This one too, and then we're going to put them on each side of the piece you see here. Might need a new blade. We're going to put them on each side of this. This is what you made in step 2. It was a strip set, and you've now cut this into 4 3/4 inch squares. So 4 3/4 each way. So what I'm going to do with these triangles is I'm going to put one on each side. So this is what we're going to end up with. Okay? And to do that, I had you cut these slightly bigger, so you know me, I'm always happy with a second chance. So I'm going to take and put this in half and mark my halfway point. Sure. Oh, it did mark. Okay, on each one. So that I can mark the half, I can match those up to here and here, and then I'll mark halfway on there. Okay, so halfway and halfway. Okay, now I'm going to sew them first to these two sides, and I'm going to put my halfway mark on the seam line because the seam is halfway. Now I'm going to sew this at 1/4. I'm going to sew with this up so that I can make sure my seam stays pressed open. And this isn't going to make this very much bigger, just a little bit bigger. But enough so that we might have to trim a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to sew one to this side, matching up my centers. Make sure my seam stays pressed open. Now I'm going to press these toward the gray. I'm going to make sure they're nice and flat because my other two pieces are actually going to cross over these. So if this isn't flat, let's get rid of some of these threads that are hanging out here. There. Okay, now these two here. So I'm going to have to fold this in half. And mark where half is.
What are you lining up?
I'm lining up the edges of my blue piece, my middle piece, which actually is also the edges now of the gray. Okay, and now my mark to my mark. And this piece isn't very much bigger, so it is important to get the marks lined up. I think I need a pin. There we go. Same thing over here. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch this, and I want to be sure that these seams stay the way I press them toward the gray corners. So now I've got a little more to line up here. So I've got my raw edges together and my seams the way I want them. Remember, it's important to keep it straight all the way to the end. Keep your 1/4 inch all the way, don't let it fade at the end. Okay, so same thing over here. Okay, now I'm going to press this the same way. Now this piece is supposed to measure 6 1/2. So if it doesn't, I have a little bit to trim down. Okay, so I have a 6 1/2 inch square here. And if you look, even with my extra, it comes out to 6 1/2. So all I'm going to end up trimming is these little things off here.
Where are you lining it up?
I'm lining up the middle. See the diagonal, the 45-degree line that goes down the middle of the ruler on there. And if you look, I can go all the way around. And I'm getting just a little bit of shavings in a few spots, but for the most part, I am getting very little to trim off other than my little dog ears. And I have the 6 1/2 inch square that I need. So if you may have some to trim and you may not. It doesn't matter. Do whatever you need to do. If you don't have a 6 1/2 inch square and you have trouble using your regular ruler, you can usually use any square that's bigger and just mark off your 6 1/2 on it so that you can do the same thing. But if you need to, you're welcome to come into the shop and use this 6 1/2 inch ruler to trim yours up. Now, in the next step, step 4, you're doing exactly the same thing, only notice they're different colors. So notice the order that the G's are diagonal from each other, and notice that the orientation on 4 of them is this has to be this way with the G's here and here, and on 4 more, this has to be this way. Actually, look, the dark blue this way, the light blue this way. So the G's would go here and here, the J and I. And on this one, you're going to go this way with the G's here and here and the J and I. So make sure about the orientation. But we've done the same thing. You're cutting instead of 5 1/8. I believe I told you to cut 5 1/4 inch squares so that you have a little bit extra, and then you'll be trimming those down to 12 1/2 inches, just like many of the rest of your blocks. Okay, so good luck. We're really in the home stretch, and I hope that you love the quilt.